Thank you, Bree. Good morning, everyone. It looks like people are still coming in. We may not have as many people today as we have in the past because things have not changed that much since last week. We do have some updates for you. I am going to go over what we've previously gone over just to make sure that people that are new understand what's going on with PPP and everything else. So welcome today to session 77. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you being here with us. And this is brought to you by the Northern California SBDC. We are supported by the SBA and the state of California. This is how we're able to provide no fee advising for small businesses. One-on-one, no fee advising. Also, this is how we bring you these webinars on a weekly or daily basis. The Finance Center is presenting this today, and we specialize in getting loans for small businesses. So from startups to expansions to people that are trying to figure out the disaster loans, please get in contact with us. I am the director of the Finance Center, and we also have Steve Roth. He's here with the Finance Center, and he is the regional lending specialist. We are going to tag team this like we have done in the past. So I'm just going to jump right into it. We also have SBA here. We also have Case here, but I will introduce them a little bit later as well. Housekeeping, the slide deck will be shared during this webinar in the chat and also after, I believe. Bree can correct me on that if I am incorrect. Sorry, the webinar is spelled with 2 W's. I apologize for that. The webinar is being recorded and will be available at ASKSBDC.com. If you have questions, please place them in the Q&A and not the chat. And please let us know if it's in regards to PPP, EIDL, the grant. If it's directed to an attorney, please put that in the question itself, so that way we can answer the questions correctly and it can come from the correct people. If you need technical assistance, please put that in the chat and Bree will be happy to help you. Things are changing all the time. We are getting new information constantly. They're just one-offs here and there. So the bulk of our information today is still about the same, still pretty much the same. This information was correct as of last night, and we'll jump into it. Our agenda today, we are going to go briefly over the California Relief Grant. And I say briefly because we still have our 11 o'clock daily webinar that goes through everything grant. So I'm going to go lightly over this today. If you have any grant questions, you can ask them here, but I would suggest that you jump onto the 11 o'clock if that's what you're really looking for. And Bree will put that link in the chat so that way you can jump off of here and jump on there if you have any specific questions. Paycheck Protection Program, we're going to go over that too, the first draw and the second draw. EIDL and Targeted EIDL Advance. Targeted EIDL Advance, we're going to go over that. Steve's going to go over that as well. So SBA Debt Relief, Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. I do want to let you know that that is not opened yet. It is not open, but we do have some updated info for you. And also the Employee Retention Tax Credit, the ERTC. The SBA team will give us their updates as well. We're going to go over some upcoming webinars, and Case is here, our attorney coalition, to help us through all these questions and also be here as a resource for you and us. Then we'll go over Q&A. What's updated since last Wednesday? SVO, you must sign up with www.sam.gov, and the instructions are here. Bree's also going to put the instructions in the chat. So that way you have them. There is a document with the instructions and also has the website. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to complete that. Steve will go more into that later on as well once we get to the SVOs area. If you're still looking for a lender to get funded for your first or second PPP draw, please reach out to us. And then we can help you through that. You can go to any of your SBDC centers and we can walk you through that. We can find them for you. We do have an ongoing list that's being added to daily on who is funding deals and who you don't have to be have a banking relationship with. So that might be something as well for you. So the California Relief Grant, it did open up yesterday. There were some hiccups because a lot of people started applying right away. The round 2 closes on February 8th at 6 p.m. Selections and notifications will start February 11th through the 18th. The waitlist notice will be on February 22nd. And I understand this is confusing for the second round. What is the wait notice for the second round? There may be additional funds. We don't know that for sure, but I think that's what everyone's banking on or hoping for. Non-selection notice is going to be from the 24th through the 31st. And this is not a first come, first served type of grant. They're going to look at everybody with those specifications that are on the grant, the CAR, reliefgrant.com. Please go there, and it goes over exactly what they're looking for qualifications for this grant. Like I said, the grant is open. Understand that people are still having issues logging in. One of the reasons is if you were waitlisted from round 1, you have multiple applications in the system, or you're not using the correct link for whatever partner portal you used. And if you're able to find that partner portal for the SBDC, if you can put that in there for people, just in case if that is a question, that way you can go through there and see if you can get into the system. So let's jump into PPP versus EIDL. Now you can apply for both right now. If you have not applied for the first round yet, please go and try and apply. If you have not applied for EIDL yet, please go ahead and apply. Now these are the differences between the two. PPP is forgivable. 1% fixed interest rate if the remaining loan that was not forgiven, it is a 1% fixed interest rate. And it can go from 2 to 5 years, depending on when you sign the document. So the first round, after June 30th, everything changed to 5 years. But prior to that, it was only 2 years. But you can also try to negotiate with your lender to see if you can go to 5 years. That is a possibility. Use of funds, payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, utility, and expenses. And we'll go over that in more in depth a little bit later on. You can apply through SBA approved lenders. We can help you find those lenders, or you can also go to sba.gov and they can find you lenders there too. No collateral required. For the EIDL, it is not forgivable. It is a 3.5% interest rate for profits, and for nonprofits, it's 2.5%. It is a 30-year term. You can pay it off sooner. There is also a 11-month deferral. Your first payment is not due until the 12th month. You do accrue interest though throughout that whole time, but you can pay it off early without any penalties. Use of funds is working capital, inventory, fixed debt payments, and other normal business expenses. Apply directly through SBA at sba.gov. It's very easy to get. The portal, the application is very user-friendly. Collateral for any loan amounts over $25,000, and personal guarantee from business owners that have 20% or more business interest in that business. I do also want to say on this that if you have PPP money and if you also have EIDL money, you just can't use it for the same purposes at the same time. Also with your grant money, you can't use it for the same purposes at the same time. If you have PPP funds, please use that for your paychecks, payment to your employees. If you have the EIDL, you can use that as working capital. And if you have the grant, you can also use that for working capital, but not pay the same things at the same time. Or maybe you can use that for other business expenses. We can help walk you through that. I know it's a lot of information, but we can help you. So the PPP second round, you can apply for a second round draw today. It opened up on the 13th. Applications are going to go through March 31st, 2021. That does not mean that the funds will be there until then. So if you were thinking about it and you want to do this and you qualify, I suggest that you start now, so that way and not wait until the very end. Unfortunately, people do that and the funds do run out. We don't know if that's going to be replenished or not at this point in time. I know that there's talks in the works, but we don't know. This is the money that they have right now. So this is all we know. So if you're thinking about it, please try and apply as soon as you can. Make sure to include your SBA application number from the first draw. If you're using the same lender, this shouldn't be an issue. They should have that information for you. We are finding a lot of our clients having the issue of going to somebody new for their second draw and not being able to access this SBA application number. You will need to go to your first lender and request that information from them. It's not the application number that they have given you for the bank or the lender. It is the SBA application number. So if you're asking for this information from your lender, please be very specific, and you need the SBA application number. And I'm sure Carrie will go over this a little bit more later on too, on why we need the SBA application number. Your max loan amount is going to be $2 million. You cannot have more than 300 employees. You must show a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. If you happen not to be opened in that time frame, there is another way to get qualified, and the application for the second draw goes over every single scenario there. So the FAQs in there goes through everything. I reread it yesterday. It goes through every scenario there. You must have previously received a first draw PPP loan and will or has used the full amount only for authorized uses. So if you use the funds inappropriately, I have heard some crazy stories about what people use the PPP money for, and it was not for their business. Then no, you cannot apply for a second round. And must have been in business as of February 15th, 2020. Application second draw is here, and also Bree is going to put that in the chat for you as well for the first draw and the second draw. All lenders can participate starting on the 19th. So everyone is allowed to, that wants to participate, can participate now. Nonprofits who can apply is a 501c3, 501c19, 501c6, and organizations or an eligible destination marketing organization. Paycheck protection forgiveness terms. So the loan proceeds are spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. At least 60% of the proceeds are spent on payroll costs. Employee compensation levels are maintained in the same manner as required for the first draw PPP. For loans under $150,000, there will be a simple one-page forgiveness form. It is attached here. You can just click into this button, or you can also find these documents at sba.gov. For the 60-40 split, still applies for both the new PPP and the second draw PPP. Sorry, for the initial PPP and the second draw PPP. Forgiveness terms continue. Businesses must commit to maintaining an average monthly number of full-time employees, FTEs, equal to or above the average number of FTE employees during the previous one-year period. The amount that can be forgiven will be reduced, and this is how it will be reduced. But the safe harbor rules still are in effect on this. So the information for safe harbor is linked here. Please if you need further information, you can also go to sba.gov, and all the information is there, or it is linked here on this deck, so that way you can go ahead and access it. How to calculate your loan. So borrowers can calculate their aggregate payroll costs using the data either from their previous 12 months or from calendar year 2019. For seasonal businesses, you may use an average monthly payroll between the period of February 12th, 2019 and March 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2019. An applicant that was not in business from February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019 may use the average monthly payroll costs for the period January 1st, 2020 through February 29th, 2020. I know that's a lot of dates that's thrown out there. This is just a real quick clip of what is in how to calculate maximum loan amounts, first round, this document, and then how to calculate your loan amount on the second draw here. So all the information that you're going to need is linked here as well. And I believe Bree is going to put that in the chat for you too, if she hasn't already. So the chat is a great place to find information as well. We're going to try and, give you this deck and then also give you all of these documents on the chat. PPP 2, second draw limitations. So the maximum second PPP loan amount is the lesser of 2.5 times the average monthly payroll costs and healthcare costs in the year prior to when the loan was received or within the calendar year. So this is similar to the first draw. What has changed is those that are under the code 72, for some examples, are hotels, casinos, and food service businesses. They can get a 3.5 times the average monthly payroll costs and healthcare costs in the year prior to when the loan was received, or within the calendar year for any business that is classified under code 72. You can Google code 72. You can also click on this code 72. It'll tell you all the businesses that are in code 72. This is only for the second draw though. You can't go backwards to the first draw, your first PPP, and say, okay, I want the extra 1%. It is only good for the second draw. That has been a question that has come up. So I do want to let everybody know this only pertains to the second draw. And a maximum loan amount is $2 million. So what can you use your PPP money for? So allowable use of proceeds is payroll costs at a minimum 60%. You can use 100% of that money for payroll. That is fine. But at minimum 60%. Payment of interest on mortgage obligations, rent, utilities, additional uses on, we have additional uses that have come into law on the next page. What are some eligible costs for payroll? Salary, wage, commission, similar compensation, payment of cash, tips or equivalent, vacation, parental, family, medical, and sick leaves, dismissal or separation, group health benefits, including employer health insurance premiums. You cannot pay the premium for your employee, but you can pay the employer portion of that. Retirement benefits, state and local tax for payroll. We're going to go on to what can you use that money for? You can use your PPP first round and second draw. If you haven't already asked for forgiveness, if you haven't gone through that process yet, or if you haven't spent all the money yet, you can also include this on the PPP 1. So additional eligible expenses, covered operations expenditures, such as software, cloud computing, human resources, and accounting needs, covered property damage costs, damage due to public disturbances that occurred during 2020 that are not covered by insurance, covered supplier costs, supplier pursuant to a contract, purchase order, or order for goods in effect prior to taking out the loan that are essential to the recipient's operations. Covered worker protection expenditures. So if you spent money on PPEs, you can use those funds, you can use your PPP funds to pay for that. And then previous PPP loans can also claim these, as I stated before, if you haven't already asked for forgiveness. There's no need to go backwards if you've already been forgiven for everything. Additional major PPP updates. Idle advance and other updates. Idle advance will not be reduced from your forgivable PPP amount. Applies to existing borrowers as well as borrowers that are waiting for forgiveness. So waiting on this process for those that have already applied for forgiveness. We still don't know what the mechanism is going to be, but sorry, I'm saying that, but I think SBA might have an update on that. I don't have the update, but SBA might, so they can go into that a little bit more. I believe your lender is going to be reaching out to you to assist you with that. The timing on that, I'm not sure of. Clarifies covered period will be between 8 and 24 weeks. So you can choose between 8 and 24 weeks to spend your PPP money. You can spend it in 10 weeks, that's fine, and you can ask for forgiveness after the 10th week or the 8th week. Anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks, you should have that money spent. Clarifies other group insurance, such as vision and dental. You can use your PPP funds for that. Borrowers who returned all or part of their PPP loan funds may reapply for a first draw PPP loan. We do have some clients, some borrowers that decided that they didn't want the PPP money, or they gave it back because they couldn't use it. They could never open. So they gave the money back. And if they're opened up again, they're ready to do business, or if they're ready to pay their employees, then yes, apply for the first round again. Taxes and deductions. So expenses made with the forgiven PPP loan proceeds can be deducted from your taxes. Previously, we stated it couldn't be. The new law has changed this. The gross income a business is required to report will not include any PPP loan amounts that is forgiven. Gross business income does not include forgiveness of certain loans, such as the PPP forgiven funds, idle grants, certain loan payment assistance, and grants for shuttered venues, so the SVO. What do you need to keep in your books? What do you need to keep for the PPP to make sure that you're going to be forgiven? And if they were ever to come back to you to ask you for any of these documents, what do you need to keep? Payroll and related costs, employee benefits, utilities, rent, mortgage interest. If you spent some of the money on PPEs, please keep those receipts. Please keep that documentation. You have to have it for 4 years. I've said in the past, keep a hard copy, keep a copy on, on your computer, and maybe a flash drive, just to make sure that you have multiple copies in different places, so that if something were to happen to one of your devices, you have it somewhere. And all of the applications are located at SBA.gov. All of the applications for your forgiveness are located there. There is the 3508S simplified, and that is for 150 and under. There is the 3508EZ form, and then there is the regular 3508 form. And I believe I'm calling those correctly. Let's see, I am going to hand it over to Steve Roth, and he's going to go over the remainder, and then we'll circle back on Q&A and also with SBA and case. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, closed at the end of 2020, but it's reopened now. So if you have not received an EIDL loan, you can click on the hot link in the presentation, or just go to the SBA.gov website and apply for EIDL. EIDL is for companies that have been open since 2019, actually 2020 now, and the process has been moving along very quickly. I've had 2 clients receive their EIDL loans in less than 10 days. If you did apply for an EIDL loan previously but were denied for whatever reason, you have up to 6 months to get reconsidered. The SBA has a separate appeal process. You can email, and we can send you the appeal email address. So don't reapply if you've been rejected. Go through the SBA to get reconsidered. And I've had 4 or 5 clients who were rejected in 2020 who have been approved for their EIDL loans, including one just this morning. So it does work. It may be slow, but it does work. Next one. So there's also a targeted EIDL advance. So let's go back a year ago. A year ago, if you applied for the EIDL loan, there was a box on the form that said, do you want the emergency advance? If you check that box, then you received $1,000 per employee, up to a maximum of 10 employees or $10,000. And that was referred to as the EIDL advance. Everyone got it. It doesn't work that way this time. Congress allocated additional funds for the EIDL advance, but it's on a very focused basis. It's for businesses in low-income communities. And so if you received less than $10,000 the first time, you can receive another idle advance, which is effectively a grant, up to a maximum of $10,000. So if you had, let's just say 3 employees, you received an idle advance of $3,000, you can theoretically get approved for another up to another $7,000 for the new idle advance program. But one needs to be in a low-income community, and it's capped at $10,000. And next slide, Bree. Right, so if you're located in a low-income community and on the SBA website, you will find a census tract locator. So you can see what census tract you're in. So if you're in a low-income census tract and you can demonstrate a 30% reduction in revenue during an 8-week period that began in early March, effectively when we all went into shelter in place of 2020, you may meet the requirement. Next one. You go. So the SBA is going to reach out to those who applied for idle assistance on or before December the 27th of 2020, but did not receive an idle advance due to a lack of program funding, as well as those who received less than the $10,000 and are in the targeted areas. You have to have fewer than 300 employees, and the business entities that are normally eligible for idle program are eligible for the idle advance, including sole proprietors, independent contractors, nonprofit organizations, basically 501c3s, and C6s, not C4s, not political ones. And there are a few others that have been approved as well. They're all on the SBA website, which has all the information. So for the targeted idle advance, the SBA is going to look at who applied and figure out who might be involved and contact people. And then probably over the next few weeks to a month, there'll be new rules to help you identify whether you're in a location that would qualify for the program. We don't know that now, but it'll all come forward in a little bit. Next one. The SBA is also has several really excellent relief programs. So if you have an SBA loan currently, you're automatically entitled to an additional 3 months of payments for principal and interest, starting February of 2021, this month. So for February, March, and April, your payments would be deferred up to a maximum of $9,000 a month. Underserved borrowers, which are small companies in hard-hit areas and hard-hit industries, can receive an additional 5 months of relief. That would be a total of 8 months of loan deferrals. And the best thing to do is to contact your lender. Right? You have to deal with your lender, not the SBA. So you'd contact your lender will automatically give you the 90 days, assuming the loan's current. And then they can also tell you whether you qualify for the additional 5 months. If you do a new SBA loan, then the principal and interest for the first 6 months will be deferred as well. And that's between February 1 and September 30th of 2021. Again, it's also capped at $9,000 a month. So if you're closing a new loan, you'll have an interest deferral built into it. And there's also the ability to use the PPP funds as part of a bankruptcy. And again, that program is still embryonic, so the rules are being developed. And I would check back in a week to a month. It'll be on the SBA website, and it'll also be part of this program once we know more about it. Bree? Also, as part of the December 24th, 2020 new law, there are several loan enhancement programs. The SBA had a $2 billion allocation for the 7A and 504 program, as well as a microloan program. Fees are waived on new 7A and 504 program loans. The SBA has been allowed to increase its guarantee from about 75% up to 90% for banks, making the loans more attractive to lenders. And the SBA Express Loan Program used to be capped at $350,000. The cap on that has now been increased to $1 million. Again, trying to push credit into the system. All of these work through your banks. And there's a new real estate program called the SBA 504 Express Loan Program, which allows your real estate lending groups, the community development corporations, CDCs, more latitude in making loans quickly. So if you're looking to do a real estate deal, let us know and we'll help you network to one of the CDCs. And it also enhances the microloan program for businesses impacted by COVID-19. And remember, all SBA loan programs, except for EIDL, except for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, all SBA programs work through lenders, whether it's PPP, 7A, 504, SBA Express. So you'll be working with your lender, which is great because they have a lot more resources locally than the SBA does. And then the bank will work with the SBA for you. So all of these programs are available to you. Next one, Bree. As some people have heard, there's a new program called SVO, the Shuttered Venue Operators. And as you can all imagine, if you were a theater, a music venue, a performing arts center, you've been closed for a long time. COVID has been terrible in these places. So on this slide, you can click on the instructions hot link. And the best thing to do right now is to register at www.sam.gov and get in line for the Shuttered Venue Program as the rules and regulations are all developed and put forward. It's a great program. It'll help all kinds of shuttered venues. You can't do a PPP2 loan and the shuttered venue, but the shuttered venue should be worth more to a performing arts operation than the PPP2 loan would anyway. Again, so register. You'll be contacted when more information becomes available. Next one, Bree. Great. And so the key thing for the shuttered venue, for all of the dots and for all of the bullet points, is really that you have to have been in operation on February 29th, 2020. So you have to have been open by February 29th, 2020 to qualify. And you really needed to be in the business of doing venues. So if you were a restaurant that had music on a Saturday night, you're not a shuttered venue operator. The same way if you were a bar that had karaoke one night a week, this is not for you. Flip. So it covers live venue operators and promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organizations operators, museums, zoos, aquariums, motion picture theater operators, talent scouts, representatives, and each business entity owned by an eligible entity that also meets the requirements. Again, the best thing to do is to go to the SVO grant at sba.gov. Look at the criteria for yourself and sign up so that when the program does go live, the SBA will contact you. Next one. Employee retention tax credits. Not every company will be able to use the new PPP draw for different reasons. The number one, as Sunita said, you have to have had at least a 25% reduction in revenues, gross receipts, for one quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. So April, May, June 2020 versus April, May, June 2019. But if you don't qualify for PPP, the Employee Retention Tax Credit Program can help and provides offsets for what would be taxes. This program is also being developed and it's likely going to run through your tax preparer, CPA accountant, because they're the ones who are going to know exactly what your business did and didn't do. But just be aware of it. And I know from talking to CPAs and tax preparers about PPP1 and PPP2 and forgiveness, that they're all cognizant of the program and they're all looking for the regs. So they'll help you take care of this. But you can't do the ERTC program and the second draw of PPP at the same time. Next one. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Sunita.
Thank you. Sorry, having some construction going on back here. Let me know if it's too loud, please, Bree and Steve, and then I will let you guys take it over. I would like to introduce. For you. Sorry?
I saved some questions for you.
Awesome, thank you. So I would like to introduce you to Carrie Ellenwood. She is here from our SBA office. She is the Deputy District Director. She's going to provide any updates that we didn't already hit upon. So thank you so much, Carrie, for being here. Also at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there is the SBA disaster contact information if you need that. Thank you, Carrie.
Great, Sunita, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here today and share what I can of information. Before I get started with some of these different programs, I'd like to remind everyone that this is Black History Month and SBA will having webinars every week for the week of February, starting on the 10th. I'm going to put the link to get that information in the chat when I get done speaking this morning. So in terms of PPP loan data and information, you can always find that at sba.gov/PPP. I want to share with you that so far as of January 31st, more than 891,000 paycheck protection loans totaling over $72 billion have been funded by our lending partners. They're doing a great job reaching out to our small businesses and taking care of them. 68% of these new PPP loans in this round have been for $50,000 or less. So our goal to reach out to the underserved communities by having it open with our CFIs as well as our non-traditional lenders first really helped facilitate that. So thank you very much for those of you that participated. And another thing that's interesting now is 81% of our loans are for $100,000 or less than the average PPP loan size is $82,000. So this is a good data for you to think of in terms of who's really getting the access to the capital this time around in the small business community. The 75% of this PPP round so far has been the second draw loans. So again, our lenders are stepping back up to speak and help those clients that came to them before. I spoke with a couple of lenders a few weeks ago before the program opened, and they had already indicated they were reaching out to their clients, trying to make sure that they had what they needed ready in terms of financial information for this second round. So good job and kudos to our community lenders and our larger lenders that are now able to access this program. In regard to the Save Our Venues program, we are not accepting applications at SBA. It would be directly with us for that program. And you cannot have both the PPP loan and the Save Our Venues. So that individual organization, some of those definitions are being worked on right now. As soon as they're released, we will share those with you. And the other pieces, they cannot have the PPP as well as the Save Our Venues grant program. So want to sit down maybe with your accountant or your CPA and kind of review which is the best way to go for you on those two programs. We are having a webinar series on the Save Our Venues program. It is offered through SBA. I don't have that link with me, but I will make sure to get that as soon as I'm done speaking and see if I can ship that forward to you, Sunita, and help me get that out to your people that are interested in those webinars. They're talking a little bit about the sam.gov process that you've been hearing about. It's going to be slightly different than the typical registration, so stay tuned. We'll have more on that. And then the other thing that is going on is a lot of changes. We've had more changes to this program since it was announced than any other program. We communicate with our lenders in a form called a notice. And so we have issued more notices this quarter than we have for any of the other programs. So it's very fluid. Every day it's changing. And I sincerely encourage you to go to the SBA.gov/PPP website, because that's where you're going to find the most updated information on all of the new programs that'll be available to you soon. That's my update for today, Sue and Anita. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Here. We're going to go over some upcoming webinars. We're going to keep our Wednesday webinars on a weekly basis. So we are going to be here to give you the most up-to-date information that we have prior to the webinar on the 10th, 17th, and the 24th. We will most likely keep this through March. That way, if anything changes during that time before the end of PPP, we have that information for you. Let's go over some of the upcoming webinars that we have for our region. Mobile Food Incubator, starting your business on the 4th and 5th, taking your artisan food business to the next level. On the 8th, planning your business is on the 11th, and on the 18th is financing your business, and also on the 22nd. Checklist to opening a restaurant. Our restaurant group is phenomenal. They are putting on a lot of these regional webinars. If you have not been to one of those webinars yet, please attend. You can get to them by going to sbdc.events/network calendar. And also, if we have past events or webinars located at our learn.norcalsbdc.org. And you would just have to sign on there and then just watch any of the webinars that have already previously been released. So it's in our library. All of this is brought to you by our region as well, the SBDC, Northern California SBDC, and is on our demand webinars. And it's tailored to all of our small businesses to either start, grow, survive, and also thrive. Let me jump into CaseForce. I am going to present the disclaimer really quickly and then let you know which attorneys are here. I believe that some of them already have been answering some of the questions in the queue, so thank you very much for doing that. The office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related questions. Today's attorneys are David Hoffman, partner at Morrison & Forster, Heidi Kim, associate at Start Small, Think Big, and Elise Hicks, attorney at United Policyholders. I believe Heidi had some updates. So Heidi, if you would like to go ahead and provide those, that would be great.
If you aren't familiar with Start Small, Think Big, we provide free legal services for small business owners in certain areas of the law, mostly contracts, employment, and most importantly, what I'm going to discuss today is commercial leasing. So when the pandemic hit, the most need we saw from our clients was in this space. Obviously, for those small business owners who have a brick and mortar, the leasing issues have been, to say the very least, a headache. And so what we did was we created what's called a rapid response program where people could just apply for our services to come and learn basically how to renegotiate with their landlord, how to get out of their lease if possible, and then also how kind of the local moratoriums fit in with their lease situation. So today I'm just going to discuss a little bit about, just give some tips about negotiating with your landlord, because I think that's probably most helpful to everyone. We have two different types of clients that have come to us. One of them saying, I just want to get out of my lease. Let me know how I can terminate. And then the other is, I really want to stay in my space. I'm not making any income. How can I deal with this rent situation? So what we usually advise our clients is, it's really important to be creative and flexible. So a tenant whose only proposal is asking for a termination of the lease will not be as successful as a tenant who is willing to think creatively, and make some concessions. For example, requesting a combination of maybe rent deferral, or abatement. Rent abatement is a type of forgiveness. One strategy we suggest is to use the eviction moratorium as a negotiating leverage. If the landlord's offered relief is not as good as the relief under the eviction moratorium, use that to negotiate a better deal for yourself. That being said, coming to a deal with your landlord is preferable to relying solely on the eviction moratorium, because for the sole reason that under the moratorium, you may still be liable in civil court if you rely solely on that moratorium. After the moratorium is done, your landlord still has a right to proceed with eviction or sue for damages. So it's just important to find a middle ground. What we've been seeing from landlords generally is that the initial response is no to negotiating. But we are seeing with our clients that persistence pays off. What we're also seeing is larger institutional kind of commercial landlords have been more willing to provide rent relief than mom and pop landlords. And that makes sense. I mean, they have the deep pockets to enable, kind of concessions. A lot of times landlords are concerned with keeping long-term tenants. And so they are going to be more open to rent abatement and deferral. And the way the deferral, what we've seen working is it's amortized over the term of the lease, or that it's going to be repaid by a certain deadline. And so that's kind of one strategy for negotiating kind of back rent if you have rent that's still due. Many landlords are requesting extension of the lease term in exchange for abatement and deferral. And so that's something you can play around with in negotiation. And obviously, the landlord's preferences are to defer the rent and amortize it over the remainder of the term, rather than actually forgiving rent. And the way abatement works is, there may be, you have to check your lease and you have to know your lease to see if there are even abatement provisions. Those provisions are, say something to the generally, landlord is obligated to provide certain services. If not, then there will be an abatement of rent in proportion to kind of what services weren't accessed. And, in line with thinking creatively, there may be an opportunity to change locations to a smaller, cheaper space, or you keep your rent amount, but maybe you get access to more space or other privileges. And so that's kind of what we've seen. I think in terms of, it's just really important to know your lease. I know it's hard to read some of the legalese sometimes, but really in general, what you want to be looking out for are certain provisions that most of the time probably won't be included in leases, because it is just, unfortunately, leases are written in favor of landlords. But if you are fortunate enough to have a termination lease, you can see how that works. Other provisions to look for are the abatement of rent that I just discussed. And then also what's known as force majeure clauses. I know that's been publicized in the news, but basically it's a clause that says, you know, under acts of God or certain conditions, rent obligations may be forgiven. Now, the key there is the courts have, it's unclear as to how courts are interpreting. They're all over the map. They're really usually interpreted very narrowly. A lot of times they exclude pandemics. So it's just important to really know the language that's within your lease. And then lastly, I think whether there's a personal guarantee involved on your lease is an important factor to be aware of before commencing negotiations with your landlord. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Heidi. I think we have one question for you from Jessica. Amortizing rent, can you explain how that works exactly?
Sure. I mean, you know, it can work in different ways, but what I've seen is, say you are, you've missed, you know, 3 months of rent at, you know, $5,000 each month. So you've got $15,000 in back rent, and you can work with your landlord to kind of decide an appropriate time to divide that amount and pay that amount monthly over, say, a period of a year or 2 years, or however you negotiate that with your landlord. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Heidi. Let's see, we are going to jump into some of the questions we've answered, or Steve and the group has answered about 54 questions already. Steve, I am going to answer some of your questions, Steve's son, but if you're not a client already, Steve, and you have some great questions and some questions that probably won't be able to answer here, please connect with us and become a client if you haven't been already. So that way we can work with you one-on-one and answer all of your questions. So Steve is asking, are you suggesting to submit my second PPP grant application with B of A, even if I already have successfully applied with another lender? Will the duplicate application create a problem? Yes, it will create a problem for sure, Steve. So if you already have your loan request with somebody else, then that's fine. Sometimes it's just easier just to go back to the person or the lender that you worked with first, but if that's not an issue for you, then that's fine. No, do not take it away from another lender if things seem to be working there. It's not what I suggested at all. If you already have a lender you're working with, then great, continue. If you're working with your existing lender from the first draw, great, continue. If you need help finding lenders, please reach out to us. Let's see here. Heidi, I think this one's for you as well. Our lease is up for renewal this month. What kind of termination clause you can add to our lease?
That's a great question. You know, it's something that you can suggest and negotiate. They usually kind of state certain conditions under which termination can occur. You know, you can negotiate it to be one-sided, both-sided, and then also setting out kind of a procedure for giving notice of termination and how that works.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. Let's see. Andres is asking an EIDL question. We applied for an EIDL in March of 2019, received the advance of $3,000 and a subsequent approval for $8,000 in total. We've been trying to get a reconsideration of the loan amount to $150,000, supported with our January through April 2020 figures, which were substantially different than the year 2019 for several reasons. We are waiting for the reconsideration team to reply for the amount increase. I am wondering if it would be better to withdraw the application to submit a new one. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that, Andres. Your application is still live unless there have been some changes that SBA knows of, but your application is still live, and that's the one that they're going to continue to go to. What would end up happening is you would have duplicate applications, and then it would become even, the waters would become even more muddied. You'd have too many applications out there. So they'd have to delete the ones that don't apply. So unfortunately, you have to stick with this loan number and you have to stick with this loan, but hopefully you'll be able to get through this hump soon. I know that some people have waited a very long time. Like Steve said, one of his clients was waiting a long time, but it did end up getting additional funds. I forget the scenario on it today. So please hold on for that. And then you're asking if you can have a 7A loan and an EIDL loan. Yes, you can. You can get a 7A loan as well, as long as you can qualify. Just can't use the funds for the same reasons, I believe, is the same stipulation. But yes, you can definitely do that. And reach out to us and we can help walk you through that.
And Sunita, you are correct. He does not want to reply to the system for his, if he's in the PDC recons, they're working on those as quickly as they can. As you can imagine, there have been millions of small businesses affected, and they are all that are in there waiting in the same queue that you are. And they are working those. Large volume there. Please be patient as you can. And of course, if you can apply and qualify with a lender for a 7A loan, you're absolutely able to do that. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, Carrie. So Heidi, I have another question for you. I think it's Bunny. It's stating, just wondering what to do if someone is on my business property and not paying their rent. He won't even talk to me about payments.
Okay. So it sounds like you're in the landlord situation, or at least subleasing. I would send an official letter in writing. Of course, the moratorium is still in effect. I'm not sure where you are, Bunny, but most places moratorium is in effect through the end of March. And so you may want to consider looking up your local city or county's moratorium because there is a procedure also for deciding whether to evict after the moratorium ends.
Thank you. We have, it looks like, hold on. We have another question for you. I have only seen rent moratoriums for residential rents in San Francisco. Can you direct me to what, if moratorium exists for businesses in San Francisco?
Yes. There is a moratorium for businesses for commercial leases in San Francisco. I can drop some information here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's probably easiest.
Perfect. Thank you. Heidi's going to put some information in the chat for you, Jill. So please look out there for that information. Whoa. Let's see here. I don't know if this is Joe that's asking this question, but it is Joe's tag on this. Joe, your question in regards to the SVO and not having more information. And by the way, there is some more information with this on the National Law Review Google article. When our new definitions due out, we don't have the specifics on that. There is a new Q&A that Bree is going to put on there, and it's for the SVO. Bree, if you could put that Q&A update in there, I believe it came out just a couple of days ago. That's going to go over more information in regards to the SVO. Since it has not been finalized yet or even opened up yet, I believe there's going to be additional changes. I don't know that for sure, but just from the last year and a half of doing this with the PPP and EIDL, that's kind of my experience, some of the changes. If if you go to your representatives and you believe that, one business should really be on there, I say you can go to them and request that, fight for that. It might change it if you're not one of the businesses that is on that Q&A. So I'm sorry I don't have specific answers for you on this, Joe. It's just that we don't have them, so we can't provide them to you. They have not finalized everything yet. And this is actually going to go through SBA disaster, not SBA, just like the EIDL loan is. So the most information, whatever we do get, we will give to you. And the most updated information, which is the Q&A or the FAQ, sorry, I think it's the FAQ from SBA disaster, will be in chat. So hopefully that will be able to answer a lot of people's questions. And sorry, we're not able to give you definitive answers at this point in time.
Yes, Anita, I just want to confirm you're absolutely correct. We cannot give you any information that we don't have, and we're working on this. There have been a lot of people putting this together for our disaster organization, and they're taking the feedback that people are sending them. You can go to the SBA.gov website, and I believe there's a spot there under that program that you can ask questions and send an email, and they will get you the information that we have. Until anything is published finally and out there on our website, we really don't want to speak to things that we don't know are accurate. So please be patient. It's coming as soon as they can get it out the door to you. And as soon as that happens, I will make sure that our resource partners have access to that information, and then you can continue supporting your clients. Thanks, Anita.
Thank you, Carrie. And the other thing is that unless it comes from SBA, I don't put it into these webinars because I don't know if it's been vetted and if it's absolutely true and correct. So articles that come out, I don't know if those articles have all the correct information. We've worked with some with some people in the past that information was not vetted. So I just go off of what I receive from SBA for these webinars. Let's see here. This is a grant question, and it's saying, my question is how to complete my application. I got an email requesting me to do so, and instruction says don't do anything. Don't do any edit until you've spoken with Lendistry customer service. So Josephine, please email us at loans@AskSBDC, and please forward us the email that you received for them so that we can see exactly what you're seeing. There's so many emails that are coming out. We're reading these emails so fast. Most of them have explanation on exactly what we need to do. So please, if you can forward that to us, and then we can help you there.
And
Sorry.
Sunita, sorry for interrupting, Sunita. I just want to mention the email to the targeted people that will receive the EIDL advance. If you had received an EIDL advance less than $10,000 and you are going to be in a queue of emails, and the numbers in less than thousands, few thousands of people that are likely to qualify for this reconsideration. So in the first group of those, in the next couple of weeks, you will be receiving an email from SBA. You want to make sure if you get any emails that say they're from SBA, that web address or email address ends in .gov. As you all know, when things like this happen, fraud occurs. So please be very careful before you respond to any email about the EIDL advance grants. Those are going to be very few. The process is going to be the person who received, let's say, a $5,000 grant. They are going to be able to get the full $10,000 if they're in that first group. So what would happen is the SBA is going to ask you to verify some tax information. They're going to ask you to certify some information. So those will be coming in that email. So that is a legitimate email if you already have an EIDL advance less than $10,000. And the maximum you can get is the $10,000. So if you received one for $10,000, you will not receive an email. If you received one for anything less than that, you will receive an email, and if you follow the additional documentation requirements, you will be eligible for that full $10,000. So I just wanted to clarify that. I know there's a lot of things flying around out there, so please be very mindful before you click on any link that you get in an email. Thanks, Anita. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's great advice. Thank you so much, Carrie. We always forget about that because we're trying to figure out these loans and things like that. And unfortunately, there's people out there that, you know, they're fraudulent. So just make sure that you're very aware of what you're clicking onto. And also make sure that it says .gov where you're going to. Also that these, you know, emails that are coming for the grant are coming from Lendistry. So just these are some things to be aware of. So thank you very much, Carrie, for reminding us of that again. We do need to be reminded. Hyson is saying, is Main Street 0% interest microloan included in the SBA debt relief? I got this loan in May last year in San Francisco.
No, that is not. Only the SBA 7A 504 and microloans are included in the debt relief. The Main Street program is not offered through SBA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And congratulations, Hyson, for getting that loan, because I don't believe we saw many of them. So
Handful.
yes, just a handful, not too many. Suprita, I believe this is for Heidi. What to do if my tenants have left the property without paying last few months' rent?
So I assume they just vacated the space physically. I think the first start would be to send them a demand letter. I don't know if you are able to reach them and find them. That might be a situation in which you may need to see an attorney if they are kind of have left and are hiding. Are evading.
Thank you. I think somebody answered Jennifer's question. I will read it out loud. Okay, Heidi, follow up. I thought business expenses, for example, utilities paid with a forgiven PPP loan could be used as home office tax deductions for federal. Are you saying this is true for federal, but not for California? Excuse me.
No, let's see. I'm trying to understand her question. I thought
I'll let you read through that and then we'll answer another question, Heidi. Thank you. Diane is saying, it looks like Steve's already answering this. I'm sorry if this was already asked or answered. Where do I find a list of the low income areas that EIDL is using to determine the advance? It's the advance money. It's the targeted EIDL advance. So that information is not up on our SBA's website yet, Diane, but it will be shortly, and they will reach you. SBA will contact you. You don't need to, you know, search for it. They will contact you if you are one of the qualified people.
That's correct, Sunita. And what you'll want to, it actually is not based on census tracts. It's based on an IRS definition in section 45 CD or something like that. So there's you'll get soon the information on those criteria. So please just be patient. They haven't published the information on that. And at some point, our goal is to have on the SBA website, and I can't tell you when, and a tool that you'll be able to find out if you're in one of those areas and even eligible for that opportunity to have those additional funds given to you on the $10,000. And the other piece of it is when that funding runs out, we'll have to wait for Congress to add more or not add more. We don't know. So as of today, there's the 20 billion in there, I believe the number is, And once that is exhausted, then that will not be another program unless Congress decides to make some additional changes. So as of today, we don't have all these definitions and detailed answers, but once it's available, we'll share it with our resource partners and our lenders and the public, and you will be able to go to the SBA.gov website and find that information. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, Carrie. And Heidi, can I ask you a question in regards to some of the questions I believe Jennifer asked about California and federal taxes? So you stated to an answer to her that California only, that we know of, is following the federal stance on that.
So for purposes of loan forgiveness.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you very much. Because I know that's been asked and I didn't know the answer to that previously. So thank you so much. Jennifer is asking another question. Carrie, my lender is saying that I need to reapply for my PPP forgiveness because the application form was updated since I applied. Does this restart the 90 days for SBA to make a decision on that?
It would restart for you that, but I've asked you to send me an email directly so we can converse about that. That's specific, and I need to know a little bit more, but that would be, at this point, what I would suggest. There's a little confusion out there whether if you've applied and been completely forgiven versus if you've applied and you're in process, and it sounds like you and I might need to have a one-on-one conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that. So we have gone through, answered 83 questions so far today. Is there any more questions that we can answer in the next couple of minutes? Okay, Jessica, husband and I are self-employed general partnership regarding PPP loan forgiveness. Will a bank statement of transfer of money from business account to personal account within 8 and 24 weeks work as proof of payroll? In first draw, I made a lump sum transfer within the time frame. I believe so, Jessica. I would double check with your lender to make sure that that's appropriate. But since you know, it seems like something that is definitely possible as long as you've made sure that it's used for payroll. So double check with your lender. If they're saying it worked on the first draw, then it should work on the second draw. It should not be an issue for the second draw unless anybody knows otherwise. Okay, perfect. See here, Steve is answering a question for Steve. Elizabeth, I think my first PPP has been forgiven through my bank, but I keep getting invoices from SBA. I have left messages for my bank, not sure how to get this fixed.
So that sometimes I find that the process that's going to happen for those PPP loan, and I think you're speaking about the portion if you had an idle advance that might have been subtracted, that would leave a remainder on that low interest 1% loan with your bank, so you would be getting those statements. So what's going to happen now that the legislation changed that process is SBA is going to reconcile with your lender, so those loan payments will not be required if when we get to fixing that problem that happened when the idle advance was deducted from the PPP loan. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but when they do that reconciliation with the lender, you will not be charged any interest. It'll come back to you as a fully forgiven item, but we do have to do that reconciliation with the lender. So just be patient with us, please. We're trying to continue to get access and capital out to our small businesses, and you will be taken care of. SBA will work with your lender and take care of that situation. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, Carrie. And you are welcome, Elizabeth. Let's see here. Alex is asking, is it targeted to Carrie, but we can answer this too. When considering eligibility for the targeted idle, does SBA look for both business address and owner address as they can be different and selected the one that qualifies. It's directed to your business. So it's going to be
Yes.
off of a business address. So it will
Whatever
not-
address, oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead, please.
Whatever address was submitted on that EIDL advance application is the address that they're going to use. So if you used a PO box that isn't your physical address, that's the one they're going to use. Whatever you put on the application is what's going to be used.
Thank you. So Bunny's asking, so if I got an EIDL loan, there is no forgiveness. That is correct. It is a loan, just on the PPP loans. Correct. PPP is forgivable. And it's in one of the slides, one of the first slides that we went over, Bunny. So you're correct. The EIDL is a 30-year loan at 3.5%. I'm assuming you are a for-profit business. And you can pay that off at any time before the 30 years. Joe, will there be SVO type grants for all the hard hit categories coming? Criteria should be only loss of business income, not whether you're a performing arts business. Hi, Joe. You know, unfortunately, we don't know that information. I don't know. I'll speak for the team, but if somebody else knows more, please let us know all. We don't have that information, but Joe, once again, if there is something that is missing from these bills, they are listening to people. I hear this all the time from any of the meetings I sit in on. Congressmen are listening. Go to their offices, email their offices, send letters to their offices from your small businesses and ask them for the help that you need. They are looking at it, and you know, that's all we can say. Unfortunately, we get the information and we give it to you here. But I don't know if anybody else has any inside information that they're able to give. I don't know if the attorneys or anybody else on this panel has any today, but unfortunately I do not. Perfect. So let's see here. We've answered 90 questions today, which is a great feat. We have 10 more minutes to go. If we don't have any more questions, then we will call it a day and be back here next Saturday. Sorry, not next Saturday, next Wednesday. I don't know where my mind just went. We will be here next Wednesday at 10:30 until 12. We will answer all of your questions, or at least try to the best of our ability, and also give you all of the information that we share here in our chat. We'll answer one more question from Kimberly, and then we will get going. If anybody needs to get going that's on the panel, not to worry, you can do so. We'll try to answer this. Kimberly, I own my home and am licensed for home-based work, physical therapy, healing arts. I have had to go forbear on my mortgage since last March. The current forbear is still end of March. Is there Government Care Act, etc., protection coming for us homeowners who are also based home businesses? With the lockdown stay-at-home orders here in Marin County, I still have had no business income the past year. Is SBDC and SBA advocating for us too? The home is an unincorporated area in San Rafael. I don't know if there is anything down the pike coming, Kimberly. I don't know if Heidi knows of anything that's coming down in regards to that. I have not seen anything. Sorry, Kimberly, we don't have any information for you on that. It would be great for you to reach out to your legislature too in your area, whoever your representative is, and maybe they can give you a little bit more insight on what is coming down the line. I know they're gone back and they are working on additional COVID related legislation. What it is, I don't know, unfortunately. Okay, everyone, we are going to call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next Wednesday. We appreciate you being here and all the great answers. Thank you so much to CASE and the Attorney Coalition. We really appreciate you being here every other Wednesday. Thank you so much to SBA, Bree, and also to, sorry if I've missed anybody, Heidi and Elise and everyone. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.